Welcome back to Tabletop Tactics, but today we are talking about the Angels of Death. I am James Jordan, aka The Bard, and today I am joined by Mr. Joe Pointing.
Bonjour.
The Angel of Chaos.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I retract it.
Oh.
No, I don't.
Too cool for you.
And also I'm joined by the Angel of Mischief, Katie Fode.
I love this new title. I fully accept it.
I'm giving out too many compliments today. I need to reel it in. Right. We've had some big announcements recently from the old Games Workshop. Yeah. We obviously you could feel it in the air. Emperor's Children were likely to be on the way. It's huge, it's all here, it's big news, it's very exciting.
Also hinted at it very, very unsubtly.
There was no subtlety at all.
What, with showing full grim and the like.
The full grim.
The full grim.
With his full grin. But what we were not expecting at all was the fact they were like, a while ago, oh yeah, Knights will be soon, and then they're like, we don't know where Knights have gone, but all of the Chaos people are coming, which was like, whoa. Then followed by, we had the next, and then the coming soon. And the coming soon was all reasonable. 3 of the squares were, stuff we're expecting that we haven't got yet. But one of them was a Salamander.
That was weird.
What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell indeed.
What the hell?
What is going
happening?
on? Now, there's a few things that this could be. Of course, is it just we're getting a new Salamander's range?
No.
I don't think it is either. But
Take offense. That's my salamander.
but we have Codex Space Marines. We already have Codex Space Marines.
We do.
We have all the other Snowflake Marines.
Yeah.
So is this evocative of what they're doing with the rest of the chapters? Like your Salamanders, like your White Scars, your Crimson Fists. But then also, in the detachment, well not the detachment, the balanced data slate, we saw that all the special characters got like particular rules. Like Pedro Cantor gets a rule, Kasoro Khan gets a rule, Lysander gets a rule. So does this mean something is actually coming for those characters? Are we expecting new models? Or is this just complete lies and they've just put a Salamander on there to send us doolally?
I mean, that would be very funny if they had done that.
It would be very funny.
I would award them an A-star for humour.
Is this just a huge accident? Like someone's like, wait, what? I thought that was a space wolf at Warcom, and now I put the wrong photo on.
Imagine if it's an Alpha Legion announcement.
That would actually be a really clever way to do it.
That would actually be quite clever.
And we know they've got a bit of a sense of humour because the whole Leagues of Eitan debacle.
They have.
Yes.
They have. Right, listen.
That would be quite funny if it was an Alpha Legion announcement.
It was in the rumor engine. The Alpha Legion Trident was in the rumor engine.
That is true.
That would be. It feels. I'm okay.
Hot off the heels of Emperor's
I like Games Workshop. They're not that clever.
Because also, if I'm not mistaken,
Some slack.
with the Votan debacle, didn't they forget it was April Fool's Day?
I don't know.
I'm not
That
sure.
felt like it was like, oh, this is April Fool's, and it's not April Fool's, but the mind you release on April Fool's. Like, it felt messy. Do you know what I mean? It didn't feel super planned.
It would be hilarious
Cross.
if this is a setup for an Alpha Legion kill team box. That's very
That is
smart.
peak comedy.
But it was focused on 40k.
It was.
So presumably this is something happening for 40k. Now we know we have something like Agents of the Imperium. We know that exists, and that's like a collection of stuff. Is this going to be an Angels of Death book, which is a collection of lots of detachments to represent all of the sort of extra chapters that were missing, like your Crimson Fists, like your Salamanders, your White Scars?
They've done it before.
They have done it before.
They did it in 8th edition.
Yeah, everyone had
That's
their
the
own
one
codex.
edition I missed.
Ow! I don't think it was 7th. They had, and these were proper Codex supplements. They had their own books. So it was Ultramarines, Iron Hands, White Scars, Salamanders, and Raven Guards.
Yeah, I remember seeing all the old ones at the old studio.
Yeah, they're here somewhere.
Yeah.
You have all of them. Every chapter got their own book.
I should have brought them. That was
But
poor
they
planning.
they all had the supplements because it was 9th edition where we didn't get any of that.
Yeah. But then do you remember at the end of 9th edition, there was that weird, here's loads of Battle Force boxes, and all the Battle Force boxes had like specialised artwork.
For the ones that didn't have the supplements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a point?
They're not gonna do those separate books again.
Why not?
Well, because they've done Blood Angels and Dark Angels and
And presumably Black Templars was teased in one of the cubes.
yeah.
And I presume
They have a
Space Wolves
range,
at some
and
point.
Space Wolves will get theirs as well.
But why not bring back all the supplements for the
Because
rest
they
of
don't
the
have any
legions?
units. This is the thing.
So far.
But what if they are introducing units, or what if they kind of add specialist rules to the existing units to be used in those specific books, but not with the main Space Marine stuff?
This is what I think's going to happen. Can I give my prediction?
Go for it.
Certainly can.
It's going to be one book, and they'll call it Angels of Death or something cool. And it will be done similarly to a Codex. And you'll have a detachment for each of them. Now, Iron Hands have already got Daddy Theros.
They do.
Mr. Big Axeman, Tech Marine, extraordinaire. And there are, that exist, other characters available in other chapters. So you've got Lysander, maybe he could get a new model because he's very old and Finecast.
He is old and
You've got
Finecast.
Pedro Cantor, Crimson Fist, maybe a little bit out there because it's Imperial. You can have Imperial Fist and Crimson Fist, don't know.
Yeah, but people like the Crimson Fist are popular.
I think they're cool.
They're the OGs.
Yeah.
They are the rogue traders.
Yeah. White Scars would be a little bit tough because their character is very not White Scars because he's the Khan on foot.
He's
Maybe.
not. Could get
Maybe,
White
but maybe
Khan.
they'll just bring in a White Scar.
Because
on
also,
actual bike.
That would be very cool.
if you in the balanced data set, his rule is he gives Outriders.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think about the way they have been putting the codexes out, if this is in the style of a codex, there will be models being released with it,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they're not just going to be like, here you go.
Exactly.
Deal with it.
Salamanders, we've got, what's the new one called?
Adrax Agatone.
Yes, we have him. Vulcan Heston is also
He's
a
not Vulcan,
Finecast.
he's Stan.
What?
He's not Vulcan, he's Stan.
Yes. That guy.
There's a little Salamander's joke for everyone.
Very funny.
Never heard that before.
He's Finecast and could do with a redo.
He could really do with the
Because they're getting rid of all the Finecast stuff.
Yeah, it does seem to be the great culling.
It's either bin or new.
It could be a really good way to update those models without kind of doing it as a, oh, here's just a one-off weird release.
Yes.
Or here's the release with the Space Marine Codex, but then you can't really use it if you're not using that specific army. It's just a nice way to update all those models.
Exactly. Ultramarines have got Marnius Calgar. There is an Ultramarines guy that's old.
You've got Librarian Tagirius, you've got...
Oh, he's also new.
You've got Chaplain Cassius, I
Is
think.
there still... He's
Uriel-
dead.
He's dead. You've got Uriel Ventress, he exists.
Nice that they are
He's
starting
a
to
new
kill off some
model.
He is the
people, though.
model.
There might be one I'm not thinking about. Anyway, there is probably a model that could be introduced for each
All
of
the chapters.
those chapters. Could they then, in that detachment, a little bit like what they've done with Eldari, is like, this is battle line, or this is, you have to have these.
Yeah.
And then you get a detachment rule that goes with those and some stratagems that
Like
go
a
with
bit
them.
more specific that you have to take Outriders for White Scars.
I don't play Space Marines generally. In the Space Marines book, does it have any of the battle line stuff for those detachments, or is it? No. That's interesting.
Famously open the Space Marines book, which is my next thing. Is this just going to further muddy the waters?
I don't know.
Death Watch won the LVO recently, which
They
is
did.
very exciting.
Hooray!
For an army that briefly didn't exist.
Well, because they didn't exist, they got reintroduced, they were using the old index rules, and it's like, you can be Death Watch, but then if you're a regular Space Marine, but not a specialist Space Marine, then you get +1 to wound with your Oath of Moment, but otherwise you don't get +1 to wound. And you can be the Lion, and you can be in a Stormlance detachment, but you're actually a Dark Angel. And if you take any Dark Angels units, then you can't use the Oath of Moment rule. Like, are we getting to a point now when it's becoming such a mess that could this be almost like Space Marines Codex 2? Like, do they just truncate everything?
Do a new Space Marine Codex.
I mean,
it wouldn't be the first time they've done a second version of a codex in an edition.
Oh.
Weirdly, I'm with you. I think my heart tells me that it's going to be an additional sort of supplement thing like your Agents of the Imperium. A nice little add-on on top. But that would give Space Marines at that point, like, nearly across all the different chapters, like 18 detachments.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The other thing is that it could just be Salamanders,
It could be Salamander.
which would be weird as hell.
No, they're just deciding to split out the Salamanders as a specialist
Well,
Space Marine
here's a
faction.
question for you.
Me?
Because you like, I know you don't play Space Marines, but you like the idea of Salamanders, right?
Fire.
Yeah, right. So what would that look like for you? What would you want that to be?
And your opinion on Salamanders is? Fire.
I mean, I don't know. They would need the individual units, like you have the Specialist Marines. It's tricky because my opinion on it is very much the Space Marine book just needs to be split completely and have it like Chaos, and not here's Codex Space Marine and here's your supplements. It needs to be here's Codex Salamanders, here's Codex Blood Angels. That's the split.
They've crushed it with the Chaos.
You can have the same units and then give them different rules, and then it's not broken.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to do. If they're going to do it, if they're going to split Salamanders out, they need to split everything out and separate the Space Marines.
Yeah.
They need to be pushed apart.
Yes. This is very interesting because in my opinion, relatively boring Space Marine range, there are units that will represent each chapter quite well.
Yes.
So you've got the Infernus Marines, you've got the Flamey Aggressors, you've got the Eradicators. Is that all the Flame and Melter guys? I think so. Yeah. And then I suppose you could then have intercessors and combat intercessors and stuff to fill things out.
And they could have their own special rule depending on what book they're in, like they do kind of at the moment.
Yeah. But then what? Because that's a very small range.
See, this is the thing.
How do you make it Salamanders without you just paint it green?
Well, this is where they are in a bit of a pickle with. Your hand has been raised. We're in a bit of a pickle because Salamanders are, in theory, Codex compliant, much like your Imperial Fists. They prefer to use fire and stuff, but they would use repulsors, land raiders, rhinos, infantry, bolt guns, all the rest of it, because they are a regular chapter. It is then only the naughty boys, your Space Wolves, your Black Templars, your Blood Angels, and your Dark Angels, that have like weird stuff, because they're not Codex compliant, and that's why they get a slap on the wrist every now and again from Bobby G. So, if they were going down the route, is it just that? But then, how do you distinguish? Do they have to be colour scheme locked?
I'm just going to bring it back to how you separate the things out and not have it be like, well, we've got these units, what else do you have? They do it in Chaos.
Yeah.
They do share units across those books, and then they have their own special like cultists and things like that, and that's where you do, cool, you can have intercessors, you can have these normal kind of bland units, they just have their own special rules.
Yes,
so it does work.
I think that would be how you would have to do it. You'd have to give, or maybe you don't really have intercessors, you just have the Infernus guys as your battle line, because they've all got flamers, and that's how you run Salamanders compared to other Marines. Like, there is ways of doing it.
I think it brings the opportunity in a lot more for people to explore existing successor chapters and create their own successor chapters if those individual chapters are actually getting books with multiple detachments in. You can actually have successors again.
Yeah, because it used to be you'd have a whole different army rule. Like, if you were Imperial Fists or Crimson Fists, you'd get sustained hits on your bolters. Yeah. So every bolt weapon would get sustained hits. So you felt very different if you were going down that route, because even your regular intercessors only get loads of shots. Whereas in White Scars, you could advance and charge. That was your thing. Do you remember back in the day? Like, that was the whole shtick.
Speaking of army rule, now, Salamanders, Ultramarines, Iron Hands, White Scars, Raven Guard, Codex compliant?
Yeah.
So you could then potentially have an army rule for Angels of Death, because they are abiding by the law of the Codex Astartes. Yeah. And then to separate them from Space Marines just being Bayvows, and then you have a detachment rule to give them the flavor. Yeah. So you could be like, if you got a flame weapon, then you get +1 Salamander points.
Yeah.
Or
if it's the specialism.
Iron Hands would be like, you can make Dreadnought's battle line. Which would be sweet. White Scars, you can make the incredibly small range of bikes battle line, and then
and then bring out more bikes.
But but this is
bring out old silly little small bikes, please.
But even if they added a Khan on bike, you've then got another character to lead bikes.
I really wonder if this is actually will be the book of plugging gaps. Yeah. Because I think, like you said earlier, they have this awkward thing now. They tend to be like, when a book's released, that's when you get your models. But we know we're missing a captain on bike. So therefore, White Scars, even if you're gonna run the Stormlance detachment in Codex Astartes, you only have the chaplain on bike. That's the only model you can use as a character for all the enhancements that require mounted. So it's kind of that thing of, is this just going to be a consolidation of things? It's going to be like, here's a new Vulcan, here's a new Lysander, here's a new Khosrow Khan on bike, here's a few different characters.
Imagine how cool it would be if they just put all those models out at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be awesome.
Here's Pedro Cantor. Hey, here's also Alessio Cortez for the Crimson Fist. You've got 2 characters for that. Let's add in the guy everyone's been talking about, the jump pack guy from the Raven Guard. He's been in stasis from the Horus Heresy, and they've woken him up in the fluff.
Yeah.
He's like a cool dual sword guy with a jump pack. Like, you could just be like, hey, here's loads of cool characters that are locked to this chapter, but also here's a detachment so you can run them. Kind of like Agents of the Imperium, but you have all the extra chapters.
Do you think they'd go as far, this is a bit of a push, as doing a battle box for each of those? So you've got your character, but also maybe like a specific unit as well?
I mean, they did do the battle boxes for all of the chapters at the end of 9th.
Yeah.
Or Christmas.
Because some of the battle boxes they've done in 10th have just been a new unit plus a bunch of other stuff that sort of vaguely represents the vibe of the army.
Like, I think I think it's totally plausible.
Throw in a transfer sheet.
Because to me, it's one of those things of like,
But a trade.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, like I'm in a relatively upgrade spruce would be nice. So you guys have a
they're not
show
going to do an upgrade sprue. They can't do it for Death Watch.
But if they create a battle box, they will put an upgrade sprue in the battle box because they put upgrade sprues in like the combat patrols for the specialist marines.
The Dark Angels Battle Force box has all the upgrade sprues. The Blood Angels Battle Force box has all the upgrade sprues. So you would have an Imperial Fists one with, is that what the release is going to be? Here's a character and upgrade sprue. So all the chapters have their like upgrade sprues.
It'd be really cool.
And that's all they would need to do. And the thing is, which sounds insane, is everyone's like, well, that's mad. Space Marine's getting a second release in this edition. But we are coming at it from a point of neutrality when we love all the factions, we play all the different factions. But let's face it, Space Marines make the most money for Games Workshop.
But also, Space Marines, people need to remember, like when you split out the different types of armies in Warhammer, you've got like Space Marines get split from the Imperium. It's its own separate thing. Mm-hmm. Really, that's only got Space Marines, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Black Templars, Space Wolves.
Yeah.
Death Watch didn't really exist, so Games Workshop kind of pushed that under the rug.
Excuse me.
That's 5 releases. When you compare it to something like Xenos, which have Eldari, Drakari, Tyranids, Orcs, Tau, Leagues of Votan, Jeed Steeler Cults. I think having another release for Space Marines isn't really pushing the boat out that
Exactly.
much.
Like even if it is Space Marine 2 Electric Boogaloo, do you know what I mean? Is it just here's the up? Because also the balanced data slate is so drastically different for a lot of the Space Marine stuff. Mm-hmm. They're not out of the realms of possibility of reprinting a book that has Space Marines on the cover and selling it again.
You know what's quite crazy about this? It actually makes me a bit excited about Space Marines again.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I think they're one of the most boring armies there are. Sorry, everyone that plays Space Marines. But they're just a bit dull, aren't they? If you compare them to, I know I'm biased because I love Chaos, but look how much flavour there is in those armies. Everything is completely evocative of the feel of the army. If they didn't upgrade sprue with shoulder pads, helmets, and little trinkets and things.
Weapons.
And then when you painted them in that colour scheme, it was like, that is undoubtedly Salamanders, Iron Hands, blah, 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 blah. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
I was kind of, I was going to interrupt and say the exact same thing, so I apologise.
But also, like, I think 2 editions on the trot now, you have the issue Space Marines always have, is they're first at the gate, right?
Yeah.
And in 8th, it wasn't so bad because Space Marines came out, but then you had all the Codex supplements later. So Iron Hands became a big problem later in 8th edition with the power creep.
Yeah.
Whereas what we know from 9th is quite quickly Space Marines became basically unusable because everything else would just table them in 2 turns.
Yeah.
But you also had the thing of because it wasn't indexed in 9th edition, you could still use those 8th edition supplements. So, but this is kind of the first edition in a while where we've just not had anything for those outside of the main codex.
Exactly, right? And there could be a major concern from Games Workshop is as they're taking all these new codexes out. And like we've seen, like Codex Eldari, super dynamic, super interesting, feels really powerful. Tau feels really powerful and flavorful. Like all of these new detachments are coming out with quite a lot of power to them.
Yeah.
That the fact we see people running regular Space Marines as Black Templars or Blood Angels to get the benefit, maybe they're like, hang on, we need to restructure how Space Marines work. Are they just going to release a brand new Space Marines Codex in the middle of the edition? Give them the power back.
Maybe this was part of the plan.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason in the original Space Marine Codex that things weren't listed as battle line and those specific detachments didn't have that much flavour is because they were always intending to do something later down the line. And that was just, cool, you've bought into Space Marines, you've bought into Ultramarines because they're the poster boy. This allows you to test out those other chapters and see what you think of them. We're going to release something later in the edition.
Yeah.
And if one of those has taken your fancy, there'll be something for you then.
Exactly, and it comes at a great time because like Heavy Intercessors rules have changed, Intercessors rules have changed, Oath of Moments changed, all the different characters have all got different rules. Like what we said this in the Balanced Data Slate review, there's like a huge amount of change, like same with the Advent, there's huge changes for all these, and they're the poster boys. They're the intro to the game, so it's not out of the realms of possibility that it would do, here's an updated version of the Codex with all these new characters in it.
It would also be a smart business decision for Games Workshop. They are making a lot of money at the moment and probably want to make more.
Yeah.
They could just start reselling these boxes again. Be like, oh yeah, why am I not in charge? Because you've now got these rules to represent all of these different chapters, all of the Phobos stuff, and we've talked about doing this with our own Obsidian Dragons.
We have, Jamie talked about it.
Because every time we're like, oh yeah, they're Salamanders, people are like, but they're not green.
I think White Scars is the worst
one.
one.
We get away with Salamanders because they're technically a Salamander
They
successor.
are a Salamander
that's
successor.
True. But
we have Pelagon.
But they're not green. But what was my point? Oh yeah. If then like the Raven Guard is like all the Phobos stuff is then Raven Guard and all the jump pack stuff. For White Scars, all the speeders and the bikes are then absolutely White Scars. You can get your upgrade sprues and then make them our own thing. It's just a way for them to start selling those boxes again.
And if they have created a new codex that has all of those units in, they will be updating all the marketing pictures. They'd be able to update the pictures on the box, so those units are in those codex colors.
And when they do the normal thing, which is like they're Ultramarines then have their own rules for the game.
Yeah.
Also, you could make it really exciting. Is you could be like the first step in like army building for Space Marines is you pick a chapter master or you pick a character. You can pick like a successor one that gives you 2 detachments.
Yeah.
You pick Kasara Khan. Yeah. He gives you Stormlance and a new White Scars detachment. Yeah. You pick Lysander, that gives you Anvil Siege Force and something else. Yeah. So it's like you're planting your flag of like, I'm going down there, and Caliban, Firestorm Assault Force and like Super Flamey Shoot Boys. But do you know what I mean? Like you're picking this is the route I'm going down. Yeah. So I have to take units that are evocative of that chapter, which would really help them balance Space Marines so it's less messy. Because, you know, they need a bit of a leg up. That's why they gave them +1 to wound, because they aren't doing so hot right now. But I think it's...
like salamanders.
No. Because it just feels so convoluted and messy of how you make a Space Marine army, because you can put Blood Angels in a advanced and charge strat that's meant for mounted. It's just too messy.
Lock them out, lock them up.
Lock it all up, yeah.
Lock it all up. If you're gonna play, don't be a coward. If you're gonna play Salamander, you've got to do the Salamander stuff. You wanna be a Dark Angel, you gotta use the Dark Angel stuff.
Yeah.
You coward. I can see it happening, it would be cool. Because like, I think I've said this a few times before. What can they add to Space Marines next? Like, what's left?
You're just going to continue to bloat the army.
Well, look at the Desolation Marines. One of the least favourite units ever. Everyone was like, they look terrible.
I completely forgot they existed.
Because some poor person was like, look, we've got one more box we need to make to complete the current range of Space Marines.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do. And they're like, Desolation Marine. And they're like, that'll do.
Well, I kind of feel like they got caught out because in that same box, they made 2 brilliant decisions. Yeah. They had the Brutalis, which was like, we need a combat dread, which we don't have, and here's a multi-part lieutenant that you can build for any chapter.
That's a great
right? And I feel like that was designed well, and the Brutalis was designed well, and then I'm like, but the thing is, we can't release a book, we can't just release one model, so we have to put it all in a box. We now need 10 extra Space Marines to carry a different weapon. Whereas if they did do like, here's a menagerie of characters that comes with a book and Battle Force boxes for each chapter, that's
a huge release.
Yeah. That's way more exciting.
That's so cool.
I'd be like, oh.
It would be really interesting because if you think about it from the perspective of like the potential ranges for each chapter, if you're looking at Raven Guard, you've got heaps of stuff because all the Phobos stuff makes sense. If you're thinking about Salamanders, you've got loads of Gravis stuff, which also makes sense. Looking at Iron Hands, perfect. You've got all the Redemptors, you've got Tech Marines, brilliant. Salamanders, White Scars, sorry, not much of a range. However, I reckon in 11th edition, they're probably going to introduce new bikes because you have 3 models specifically.
What's the thing? If in an upgrade sprue, there was 5 curved scimitars or like swords for the Outriders, and different gun options, because they love being on their bikes. You can't use that in Imperial Fists because White Scars can.
But yeah, you can keep the same base and just with an upgrade sprue create multiple different units.
I mean, they could probably do the multi-part kit as well because that's still
that pushes.
But a new multi-part kit for Outriders, but then probably lead on to new Black Knights or Raven Wing. So it makes sense for them to be doing another bike.
Yeah. And then maybe some bikes for Chaos.
No, we got plenty of stuff. We're fine.
We're eating good.
We are absolutely full with stuff. We got so much good stuff. This is my point. Chaos have got incredible range. Space Marines is boring.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really represent your chapter without just painting them in a specific colour.
Especially
and
because
it makes sense for them to start branching out and doing a Chaos.
Because weirdly, and it makes sense because they want to update the range, the more Firstborn stuff that's been removed, the less flavour you have for creating your own factions.
Yeah.
Because you have that thing of, you used to have a Cannon bike, you used to have attack bikes, you used to have all these different things, Talon Masters and stuff, like Land Speeder Typhoons, all the different scouts and stuff. They've redone the scouts. They're starting to add that back in, and I think it just needs this core structural thing of how it's all going to fit together. And if this is a release that's just a smattering of things, even, look, I know I don't particularly like the game mode itself, but even if it's just a combat patrol for every different chapter, that is like a really good entryway into that. Like, you get Lysander, 5 Terminators, and 10th Down Guard for Imperial Fist. You get Khosrow Khan, 6 bikes, a Land Speeder.
Yeah.
Cool, like that all feels very evocative. It's a good starting point for these like new players that want to get into it.
It's the new player thing as well.
Yeah.
I think it will probably appeal to new players or people that want to try Space Marines for the first time.
Yeah.
Because if they just come out and be like, oh, here's Pedro Cantor, is a new model. It's like, that's cool. What do I do with him?
What do I do with Pedro Cantor? Yeah.
You kind of need him to be bundled in with a box.
I quite like going from core Space Marine Codex to here's now your specialist when you're ready to step on and actually choose what you want rather than here's all the flavour right up front. You've just started the game. You've never actually played a game.
Yeah.
You're picking up a box. You're picking a chapter. You have to figure out not only what you want to spend all this time painting, but exactly the game style you want to play.
Yeah.
But if you just start with generic Space Marines and then have this thing of like, well, now you've done that. Here's your flavour. Here's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you can actually pick from that point. I like that as a progression.
Yeah. And you have your upgrade sprue in there. That if you then have rules that are attached to that thing, like you say, once you evolve from the mainstay of, I understand that Outriders are a thing, but I get that White Scars are all about the bikes, then that upgrade sprue is all about just bike upgrades, because that's their thing. So, great, that really helps them.
Do White Scars like jump packs?
They like speeds, they do. I mean, they do even use Terminator plate. They do use, they are Codex compliant. Like, they have Cataphracti and the Heresy and stuff. They're not completely against it, but they like to be on the move.
Yeah.
So they do, like, Assault Intercessors, Impulsors. Like, you could have a really cool, like, mounted and, like, so on bikes, in transports, speeders, the whole, there's loads of ways you can make all the different chapters work and give them that flavour.
Yeah, and I think the flavour really is what's lacking. If you think about the old school way of getting some models, you go to your Warhammer store. Little Jimmy and Jenny are going in to buy their first box of Space Marines, and they're like, what Space Marines should I get? They're like, well, here's this box and this box and this box. But instead, you come at them. You come at Jimmy and Jenny. And you're like, listen, you want to go zoomy with some bikes, Jimmy and Jenny? Here's the White Scars. There you go, blah, blah, blah. If you want to be part robot, cybernetic, you ever seen Terminator, Jimmy? I've seen Terminator. Well, you can have your Terminators and big stompy robots.
Yeah.
Are you sneaky, Jenny? Maybe you should try Raven Guard because they're all like stealth and robots and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, that sounds good. And here's the leader of the Raven Guard. Here's the leader of the Crimson Fists.
Yes.
They can represent your army. You can be like, do you want to buy a box of Desolation Marines?
Yes.
What do? I don't know.
Yeah.
They go shoot.
Yeah.
Everything goes shoot.
Yeah. I think
the flavour. We want the flavour back.
It will really help people, because I think we're getting into a point now, like, and I'd be fascinated to know in the comments, if when we say Raven Guard or White Scars, if you've joined recently, you might not have a Scooby-Doo what that is.
What does it mean?
You might have heard it reference loads, but we don't live in the 8th edition world when Codex White Scars was the thing.
No.
So,
and those were good books. They were cool.
They were great books.
Flavorful.
Because also think of all the enhancements you can add, all the characters, all the different things of like, and the key thing for me is it will help really structure Space Marines in a way that is a bit too open. And I think for all Space Marine fans that are like, yeah, but I want to just be able to run everything, you should still be able to do that. You still want to be able to do the Ultramarines thing of like, we will use everything, but also this structure will help them actually balance Space Marines.
Yeah.
Because you'll be able to be like really good at a set thing, so the army build will be your potency.
And that's even if like in theory these detachments have simple rules of, well, these stratagems and these enhancements and the army rule affects this specific type of model. It doesn't mean you can't take the other
exactly.
models. I mean, I'm personally a big fan of collections, and if they're Codex compliant, they would have a little bit of everything because that's just how it works. But in that detachment, this stuff gets the bonus.
Yeah, it'd be perfect. Like if you go for the Terminator Strike Force detachment commanded by Lysander, you get, I don't know, Strength 5 Stormbolts. I'm mad. But you have to take a minimum of these things. You have to take these structural elements, kind of like a force organization thing, which we are starting to see sprinkled into the detachments and different things. We're starting to see it. This could be a kind of a reset mid-edition.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
It's very exciting. And also I think we discussed this last week, but in a world where it seems like they're making stuff like the demons being in Emperor's Children, they're making these bolder moves. They did all these Grotmus detachments. Maybe actually this was never originally a plan. Maybe they had all these models, but they're like, we do need to right the ship. We do need to make a change for Space Marines. So they're being more on the fly and creating cool ideas rather than just letting it stew and become a bit lackluster and everyone being like, no, I'm a bit bored of Space Marines now.
You don't want to be bored with Space Marines. You want to be excited.
Well, I think they can't afford people to be bored of Space Marines as a business.
Yeah.
It's their main.
Yeah.
It's their flagship model.
It is. Like they have all these video games, all these things that they kind of got to make sure they're the most exciting. And I think this might also mean, hey, maybe we'll see a new Codex Tyranids. Will they start re-releasing codexes, like a phase 2?
Give me more Tyranids.
It's super exciting, and I think obviously this could just be a big joke from Games Workshop that they've just put a little salamander in a corner and it means nothing.
It's actually just Alfarius the whole time.
Oh man,
That would be so funny.
nothing for Space Marines again.
Or there's just a room full of people at Warcon being like, why did you... What? I need an image quickly.
Yeah.
Why did you put a salamander down? They're going to think something crazy is happening. It's like, we have no plans for the salamanders. It's like, yeah, but it filled the square nicely. It's like, you were supposed to put a leg in there.
I thought it was pretty.
Jimmy and Jenny? What are you playing at? But yeah, well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Wait and see, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of rumours floating around, there's a lot of stuff happening. So
A lot of theories. Tinfoil hat time.
it is tinfoil hat time. There's just a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon. So let us know what your thoughts. What would you like to see? What would you like to see this little Salamanders thing be? Are you a massive Salamanders fan? Do you want to see other stuff from other chapters of Space Marines? Do you want to see codexes for every chapter of Space Marines? Yes, I think we do. Until next time, I've been James Jordan, aka The Bard. I'm been joined by the Angel of Mischief. I think that's what we landed on.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yep, sure, we're going with that.
And the Angel of Chaos. We've been Temple Tactics. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Here's a quick look at what we've released this week for our on-demand members. These videos join a huge library of exclusive content that grows every week for our on-demand community. If you want instant access to all of these videos and more, head over to table.tactics.tv or download our app and sign up today. Thanks for watching.